While the transfer portal's still up and running, the Indiana Hoosiers and head coach Mike Woodson have hit the ground running in high school recruiting.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I've got a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Well, again, thank you so much for making this your first listen each and every day, your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Shout out to my everydayers out there. You are the reason that we do this each and every day. And also, before we get into content, shout out to all of you as we have passed 2,400 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you so much for all of my video watchers and listeners. Also to my audio listeners, thank you all so much. I really do appreciate you. Well, Indiana has been active in the transfer portal. There's no doubt about that. But high school recruiting never sleeps. And this is a topic that has been a little bit scary for us in the past couple of seasons, especially coming into this year where it was just brutal, right? You only had the one signee in Liam McNeely. He pulls his letter of intent. Then you get Bryson Tucker at the buzzer from half court. And now you're getting back into the high school recruiting rankings, right? You're trying to get into 2025 and say, okay, where are we going to go? Who are we going to get to where we don't fall into this trap again? Well, going on this week in Memphis is the Nike EYBL circuit up in Memphis, Tennessee. And you have all of the biggest guys that are playing in high school basketball, top 25 prospects. There's just everywhere, man. They're all over the place playing games all day, every day at the Nike EYBL circuit and the EYBL there in Memphis. And there's a couple of guys that have Indiana interest, and I think Indiana has interest in them. And we're going to talk about a couple of those guys in just a second. We're also going to talk about some apparel updates for Indiana today and also some Indiana football transfer portal news as they beef up that defensive line with head coach Curt Cignetti. So that's on the show today. High school recruiting, there's no doubt about it. I don't have to tell you this. If you're an Indiana basketball fan, you absolutely know what I'm about to say. It has not been where it needs to be. It is not good right now. And not only is it not where it needs to be, you are really, really behind so many other programs in the Big Ten, in the state. You've got to get back to being dominant if we are Indiana. And you have to do that in a couple of ways. You've got to win some games. You got to show that you can put guys in the league, which we're doing right now, not at a ultra high rate, but we're putting guys in the league, and that's a good thing to do. You want to continue to do that, but you've got to win some games and prove to these kids that this is a place they want to be. And it doesn't help when your biggest rival is coming off a national championship game appearance in the Final Four, so that doesn't help, but you have to find a way to overcome that and say, look, that's great, but that's going to be us with you. You can help us get to that point here in Bloomington and remind them we are still the premier school and program in the state of Indiana. And I think Mike Woodson and his coaching staff have understood we can't go another recruiting class with just one recruit. We can't do that. You will fall so far behind. And yes, you can use the transfer portal to kind of help make up for that at times, but that's not where you want to live, man. You do not want to live in the transfer portal and be that be your recruiting each and every year. You still need the fundamentals of the high school guys who are so good, so raw, and can come in and be with you for 2, 3, 4 years rather than a lot of what we're seeing in the transfer portal nowadays, which is 1 or 2 years. So you're trying to do that. Again, you had Liam McNeely. That didn't work out. Good riddance. See you later. You bring in Bryson Tucker. He's going to be phenomenal. He is phenomenal. He's going to be a really good player here in Bloomington for Mike Woodson and this staff. But they're already out there, and they've been extremely active for 2025, including at this circuit in Memphis. And a couple of guys that I want to talk about and mention that spoke with some folks after some of their games. The first one is somebody that I think has more of a I guess, a chance to come to Indiana than the others. And it's Meleek Thomas, who was a top 10 player in the class. This guy, 6'4", 175 pounds, listed as a combo guard, but most of what he's playing right now has been point guard. And folks, just go watch him. Just go watch the 5-star player. He's the number 1 ranked guard in the class, number 9 player on 247. Their composite has him as number 6. So top 10 pretty much consistently wherever you look, whatever site source you want to use. He's a top 10 player in the 2025 class. You have to find a way to go get him. And what he was saying was he has been to Indiana before, but on an unofficial visit. He wants to come back and have an official visit now that everything's kind of settling down and now that everything's kind of set in stone with what's happening here right now. He wants to come and take an official visit. But I mentioned 6'4", 175 pounds out of Midland, Pennsylvania at Lincoln Park Performing Arts. This kid can ball. Go watch his highlights, man. He can handle the basketball. He can get to the lane. He can create his own shot. And he has a really high and quick release. Like, it's really hard to defend his jump shot. And he can just pull up from anywhere. Off the dribble, off the bounce, off the pass, doesn't matter. He can just kind of do it all. And he's big enough and physical enough, especially at the high school level, where he gets down and dirty. He goes for rebounds. He plays a little defense, and he runs the floor extremely well. This could be your point guard of the future if everything works out. Now, Indiana's not the only ones here. Auburn, Kentucky, UConn, and Duke are also a part of this as well. And he had some good things to say when it came to some of those other programs. And the one that really stands out to me is the Auburn quotes. He said, "Tahat Pettiford is my brother, a kid that's going to be playing at Auburn next season. We can call each other, and our personalities will take us a long way. Jakai Howard will also go there. High caliber players go there. So I had to check it out. I really liked it because the atmosphere is crazy and coaches are supportive. They show a lot of love. They want me to come in and be myself." Compared to his quote about Indiana. He says, quote, "I want to do an official visit there because I was younger when I took my unofficial visit. Now that time is winding down. I want to see what they are going to present and make me feel that they are the one. I love their atmosphere and their coaches." And here's something that Indiana's already pushed into, and they will continue to do this. He says, quote, "Jalen Hood-Schifino went there for 1 year, and he made it. With him being from my hometown, that is the example that they use for me." That's a pretty good example, my friend. That's a really good example. A guy that is from your hometown that gave Indiana a chance and then got drafted and now is playing in the NBA. That's a pretty good recruiting pitch to me. Throw a little NIL his way, throw some playing time his way, and Indiana can absolutely be a player here. So keep out for a guy like Meleek Thomas. Hopefully he does get that official visit scheduled. A top 10 player, a top guard in the country for 2025. Yeah, I think that's a really good spot to go. The other one really quickly is Trey McKinney, a guy who has mentioned Indiana, but he's definitely a Michigan lean right now. Him and Dusty May have been talking a lot since he got hired up there. His quotes on Indiana quickly, he says, quote, "Mike Woodson has been in the NBA, so he knows what it takes to get to stick in the league. They have done a really good job with their guards." And McKinney is a 6'4", 225-pound player, listed as small forward, could possibly play shooting guard. He's the ranked national number 17 player in the country. Indiana is kind of here, but not a whole lot. But he said something about the Hoosiers, so I at least wanted to share that with you. But the guy to look out for is Meleek Thomas, the number 9 overall player in the class for 2025, wants to take an official visit here to Bloomington. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll take a look at what Indiana is doing for their apparel. They've extended, or at least plan on extending, their deal with Adidas. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner-take-all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more all throughout the rest of the playoffs for the NBA and the NHL. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. As I always say, shout out to my everydayers. You're the reason that we are here. And for those of you that have not done it already, on this particular video, those of you watching on YouTube, like it, share it, send it around to your family and friends. Anybody that's a Hoosiers fan needs to be right here each and every day. Also, hit that subscribe button. Takes one tap, helps us grow, and we are doing that here. Over 2,400 subscribers. So thank you so much for that. All of you wonderful audio listeners each and every day, be sure you follow us on your audio platform and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Well, an interesting story that has come out, and it's not anything like groundbreaking, but it's something that's interesting that I want to talk about in the recruiting landscape. It says Indiana will extend its apparel deal with Adidas. Indiana Athletic Director Scott Dolson announces. He talked about it on a podcast, says that Indiana and Adidas are in the process of finalizing a 10-year deal for Adidas to be the exclusive apparel provider for all of Indiana University's athletic teams. Indiana and Adidas have been partners since 2004. And the reason I bring this up today is because in today's world of recruiting, well, let me say it this way. In the past, especially in basketball, it seems like more than any other sports, the apparel brand that was representing a school was a really, really big deal. It was a huge deal because of all the things that go with it, right? As a basketball player, you want to wear a certain brand of shoes because you've grown up wearing those, and those are the ones that help you, support you, make you play your best. You get to wear the different custom gear. You get to have the jerseys and the sleeves and the socks. I mean, if you're a basketball player, you understand that all of this is extremely important to you. Plus, all the things you get to wear outside the gym, on campus, in your class, and your bed, whatever the case may be, right? All of that has been extremely important to you, whether it be Nike, whether it be Adidas, or whether it be Under Armour. And I think there have been times in the past, whether it be here in Bloomington or whether it be at any other school in the country, there have been major recruiting battles won and lost because of the apparel brand that represents a school. And I know that sounds insane, but it's true. It really is true. It seems to be more on schools that have Under Armour, because on the basketball side, because typically basketball players have not been a fan of Under Armour throughout the years. And look, I don't mind Under Armour. It's not my favorite, but I don't mind it. But I'm not a high-level basketball player either. And I think Indiana and Adidas have done really well. I kind of feel the same way about Adidas. I'm cool with it. It's fine with me. I like some things and I don't like some things, but I could say that about just every brand, really. But it's wild because I don't know how much of that is going to affect recruiting now in the future. I really don't. I have no idea. Because of all of this NIL stuff that's coming through now, that seems to take precedent over what shoes you're going to wear in a basketball game. And it affects other sports too, football and baseball and other non-Big Three sports. And I don't know. I'm really curious to see how this is going to impact recruiting and how it impacts the athletes on campus and the future athletes here at Indiana. And Dolson said something really interesting. Scott Dolson did. He explained that Adidas gives Indiana the best deal. And he also explained that the NIL world, apparel deals aren't going to be structured as they have been in the past. I don't know exactly what that means. And just kind of spitballing, shooting from the hip right here, I think what this means is for the future of college athletics, Indiana may be Adidas, but the athletes may not be required to wear it all the time, 24/7 in the future like they have been in years past. Like when you go to a school, again, let's say Indiana, for example, a basketball player cannot walk around in a Nike t-shirt. You can't show up to practice wearing Kobe's sneakers. You can't do it. That's not allowed. That's in your contract as a college basketball player, college athlete. You cannot compete in other brands. I don't know if that's going to be the case anymore. The jerseys that we wear might be Adidas, right? And that because it's got the Indiana logo on it, but anything that doesn't have Indiana on it in the future, athletes may not have to wear it. Their cleats, their socks, right? Their pads, whatever the case may be, it may not have to be Adidas branded or again, whatever school it is, Nike, Under Armour, whatever. That may not be the case anymore because of NIL. These kids can go out and get their own brand deals. And at some point, I feel like the universities are not going to be able to require kids to wear a certain brand anymore. And kids will start lawyering up. And I'm sure there's going to be a huge debacle about this. And the students will win. The athletes will win because of how the NIL world is going down. And this is really, this is fascinating to me because for so long, again, this was such a big deal. Like these schools are signing hundreds of millions of dollars of deals with these big time brands and they represent all the schools. And now you have Jordan, who's in there as well, who's got some major schools, right? Michigan and Florida, North Carolina, UCLA, Oklahoma. Like there's some big Jordan schools out there right now too. And Adidas seems to be okay, holding strong. They've got some big programs, not a ton, but they've got some. And the ones they have are massive. But this is fascinating because I think that's where we're headed. I think that's where we're headed is where athletes are not going to have to wear Adidas shoes and socks and sleeves or headbands or whatever the case may be. As long as it doesn't have the IU logo on it, I don't know if they're going to have to do that. I think they will for now, but in the future, how Scott Dolson's talking, that may not be the case anymore. I'm fine with Adidas. I'm excited about it. You don't have to change anything. You just continue to do what you do and you sign a new 10-year deal. It'll be in, if it is in here, to be 24, 25. So it would end in 34, 35, which seems like forever from now, but it'll be here before we know it. And again, I'm excited about Adidas. I'm impartial, really. I mean, I don't care one way or the other. I like some of their stuff. I don't like some of their stuff. It is what it is, but that's just, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that this is going to be changing as college athletics change, as NIL continues to grow and players continue to get more rights for themselves. That may be a direction that we're heading. Coming up in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll talk a little Indiana football as head coach Curt Cignetti gets another transfer portal addition, another one from his former ride in James Madison as they beef up the defensive line. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Look, flag on the play. You already talked about that, Jacob. Why are you talking about it again? But there's just so much good stuff in this game that I got to keep telling you about it. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every single day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasures or a robot Panchico machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Monopoly Go, game on. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, appreciate you being here, making this truly your first listen each and every day, adding it to your rotation. We post a new video and episode each and every weekday here on Locked On Hoosiers. Flipping to the football side of things, Curt Cignetti and Indiana get another transfer portal addition. This time, it's on the defensive line, somewhere that we've lost a couple of guys, including Philip Bleedy, who ended up going to Auburn, went to Auburn into the SEC. So you need some help on that defensive front, and you go and get Tyreek Tucker, who is a James Madison player, who is the 11th player now from James Madison. Seems like it's a little bit more, doesn't it? 11 players now from James Madison have committed to play for the Indiana Hoosiers. And it's not just the 11th from James Madison, it's the 24th overall transfer portal addition for Curt Cignetti and this squad. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. I mean, you're pushing a third. I know the math is not 100%, but you're pushing about a third of your roster, give or take, is transfer portal players. And that's a lot to deal with. Now, a lot of them, again, almost half of those transfer portal guys are from James Madison. So they're Curt Cignetti guys. That's a benefit because, again, I've talked about this. They know him. He knows them. There's not any surprises there. But you're still bringing in 24 new players through the transfer portal. That all has to mesh. That all has to click. And now that spring is over, you have all this summertime to sit around and wait. You have very limited time with the team and the coaches all together. The guys can go do whatever they want. They can go and practice and work out by themselves and do whatever. But it's really hard for defensive linemen to kind of work on things in the summer. It's easy for a quarterback and receiver to say, hey, you want to go throw it out in the yard? You want to go work on routes or work on timing? Or, hey, running back, come on, let's go and work on our timing, handing off and pulling it out and RPO, stuff like that. You can work on that on a Friday night. As a defensive lineman, you got to go find somebody to hit. What are you going to do? Run into a tree and try to hit it? It's just not as easy in the summer for those guys. So those are the players that you not necessarily concerned about come fall, but you are worried that you hope that it all comes together. But this guy and Tyree Tucker is a really, really good player. Last fall, he played for James Madison as a redshirt, as a redshirt freshman. He recorded 29 tackles and 4.5 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hurries, and 1.5 stacks, 5 starts on that defensive front for James Madison. He was a true freshman in 2022 as he redshirted, so played his first year last year. So you do bring in a guy that's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. So I don't think he starts, but I think he's an impactful player, and he can kind of work on some things, get better, play Power 5 football, or Power 2, whatever you want to call it now. And he could be your starter for the future. He's got 3 years of eligibility. He obviously trusts Curt Cignetti. He obviously likes what he has going. And I think he comes in as more of a run stopper than anything. 6 foot tall, 295 pounds. So he's got the size. He's a little bit on the smaller side, but he was on and look, I'll be honest, I didn't know this. He is on that defensive front for James Madison that was the leading rush defense in 2023. I didn't know that, and that's really intriguing to me. And you bring him in. Now, was he a major part of that? No, but he was on it, and and he played for it, and he had significant time and significant snaps here and there. And so, again, you bring in a depth piece, if anything, because you've already lost guys on the defensive front through the transfer portal, graduation, what have you, and now you're just trying to get some bodies in there again. I like him. I think it's a good addition. I've told you what it means to continue bringing in James Madison guys. I don't want that to be the whole team. I don't want that to be everybody, and I don't think it is. It's only the 11th, which, again, I thought it was more than that, to be completely honest. It seemed like more than that, but 11 is the number now of guys that have came from James Madison, followed Curt Cignetti. And look, this guy didn't follow him immediately, right? He went through the spring over there and then transferred here, and I kind of respect that. To, stick it out, see what happens. And he obviously maybe wasn't a fan of what was going on over there, and now he's coming into play at Indiana. I don't think he starts. He very well could. I don't think he does right now. I think you bring him in, train him up, use him as a depth piece, bring him in probably on the 2 deep, and then you hope that he can develop and become your guy for the future. And other than that, I think you are really liking where you're at, especially on the defensive side of the football. Now you've got some run stoppers in there. You've got some safeties and corners in there, which I know we've lost a couple there, but and I think we're still going to go for somebody. Here's the thing, though. Remember this. As of today, happy May, by the way, May 1st, the portal's closed. College football portal is shut down. Now, if you're in the portal, you can still commit. You can still go. You can still visit. You can still talk, and you can still find a new home. But if you woke up today on May 1st and said, you know what? I think I need to go. I think I'm going to leave and enter the transfer portal. No, you're not. You're not going anywhere because the portal is shut down. So there won't be any more news in terms of guys leaving their schools, but it's all going to be news of guys committing to new schools. And I think Indiana's going to get a couple of more. I think they'll take as many as they can because you're going to get better pretty much regardless at most positions right now. And you don't want to settle by any means, but I think Indiana can afford to just go out and get, again, as many guys as possible. And I think that's what Curt Cignetti and the staff are going to do. I'm excited to see where it goes. I know we got summer to talk about this, and fall will be here before we know it, man. August, when it rolls around, fall practice gets going, football's going to start end of August, early September. It'll be here before you know it. We've got basketball things to get through, football things to get through, so many things over the summer as well. Really excited to have all of that for you right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you being here. All my audio listeners, thank you so much. I appreciate you listening each and every day. Be sure you follow us on your audio platform. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. And for those of you that are looking at me right now on YouTube on the video version, thank you so much as well. Like the video, send it to everybody you know, and be sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for 2,400. You know the drill. We're going towards 2,500 now. Thank you so much for that. Shout out to all of my everydayers for making this your first listen each and every day. Until tomorrow, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.